to the team was his sense of just being able to connect and engage every single player. And that was an interesting thing. It was one of those things where, like, he knew every player on the team. He knew every trainer, whether if you were just the guy who, to the star athlete. And I think that really was huge in the time. Everybody respected everyone, and everyone worked extremely hard because everyone knew everybody was on the same team and on the same page. And, he was really, like, raised his voice. He knew exactly how to move, and he knows it that way. And I think that's why he had so much to come. I think, it would be good to see him coach again, which I don't know if he ever will, but if he did, I know he would be successful.
Were you surprised? I mean, you don't need to go too much into it, but were you surprised at how things ended and everything with the whole investigation and all of that, what happened with Coach Tressel, based on your personal experiences when you started out and when you were there with him at the beginning?
Right. Well, it was a little bit of a shock just because, you really didn't see it. And there were some, obviously when the NCAA violations get involved, someone has to, take the claim for what's going on, and unfortunately end up being him. But I definitely didn't expect that to happen, and we had some things go on when I was obviously playing. We had some couple things, but so we got through them. So I expected it to be the same thing, but unfortunately, somebody had to pay the price, and Coach Tressel ended up being that guy. So it's unfortunate, but something had to be done.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm just wondering, like, not necessarily that what you saw or didn't see while you were there, but the compliance side. Like, did it seem like Ohio State was pretty on the ball when it came to following up? They've got departments whose entire job it is to kind of keep tabs on everybody. Did it seem to you while you were there that Ohio State was pretty diligent about that stuff?
I think so. Yeah, I felt like, especially when I first got there, I felt like compliance was, we were always had meetings with compliance, and to make sure we knew the rules and all those different kinds of things. So I felt like they were definitely on the ball, and we definitely knew who they were, and we definitely as players knew what could be a potential violation and what wasn't, kind of thing. And so I felt like they kept us up to date on the things that we needed to know and stay away from as well.
I mean, I really feel a lot of times with those, and you being somebody that's more closely on the scene, that in any situation like that where an investigation comes out and there's been violations, that it doesn't start out as egregious as it may end up. It starts out, it's like anything in life with, one thing that slips through the cracks, and then one thing maybe turns into another, and that's how those things happen. It's not a lot of times. Sometimes maybe it's blatant, but it's not that blatant breaking of the rules as much as the laxing of the compliance and stuff like that. Would that be a fair assessment?
I think that's definitely fair. I think it does start with something small that someone might not realize could be a violation, and then they say, well, I did this and this is something similar, so I can keep going, and then eventually it turns into what just happened, and why are we on the?
Exactly.
That's the thing. That's the thing. And I think, it is like slowly but surely, it gets bigger and bigger.
Getting back to you and your career, you come in and talk to me a bit about the mentality, okay? You're coming into a big college setting, but hey, you're a well-lauded guy of your own coming out of high school and heading in there, used to being the man. Talk to me a bit about the change in dynamic when you're coming in there, and obviously there was another running back there at the time and had a bit of a spotlight on him, and Maurice Clarett, and talk to me about that adjustment for you of going from, and so many high school guys do that, going from top guy on the totem pole to another guy in a big fish pond.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely hard. It's definitely hard because, like I said, you come from a high school team where, you know, you're the man and you come out of high school and you're All-American and all these things, and then you come on a team like an Ohio State that everybody was an All-American on their high school team, and it kind of changes that dynamic a little bit. And so, you know, obviously coming in as a freshman, you know, I was very, you know, now I look back, I was arrogant. I was like, I should be starting. You know, why am I not playing? You know, I'm the hometown hero, and, you know, I'm just pumping myself up for sure. And you know, my freshman year I really didn't play as much. Obviously, Jonathan Wells was there at the time, and he's a senior, and he was playing well. And then my sophomore year, you know, I got better. I got, you know, bigger, faster, all those different things, and felt good about my chances. And, you know, every time coming out of spring ball, you know, every time the media would interview, you know, Coach Spencer, who was the running back coach at the time, or any of the, you know, Coach Bowman or Coach Tress or whatever, they'd be like, yeah, Maurice Hall is doing very well. He's into the season. Obviously, Reese Claret came in and showed, you know, the talent that he has as well. I think going into the week of the first game, you know, I was expecting that I was going to start, you know, so, you know, I'm preparing every time we're in practice, you know, I'm running with the ones and preparing I was going to start. And I think it was probably a couple days before the first game, one of the reporters came up to me like after practice and they said, how do you feel about Maurice Claret starting? And that was the first time I had heard that I wasn't going to start. So for me, that was a little bit of a blow. You know, it was a little bit of a blow, and obviously, you know, restarted that first game and did very well, and you know, obviously without his help during that season, you know, I don't know if we win a national championship for sure, but you know, like I said, it was an adjustment for me that whole season. You know, I was trying to, you know, I was torn between, oh man, we're winning, but I also want to play more. And I think any player that's coming out of high school that's a highly touted athlete, you know, you always want to play more. So that's just what it was. And, you know, obviously I prayed about it, and I didn't, and, you know, letting my emotions get to me. I'm like, well, I'm just going to transfer. I'm going to go somewhere else. And you know, I prayed about it, and I just decided, you know, hey, I'm just gonna go with the flow and you know, trust in what you know God has for me, and it ended up working out. We won a national championship. I had an opportunity to score a couple good touchdowns at the end of that season that helped us get to a national championship. So, you know, I was blessed, and it really built my character for sure.
It sounds like you may be the guys that played under Coach Tress. They tell me that one of the things he was great at was making everybody not just feel important, but realize that whether it was now or 2 weeks from now or 2 months from now, their contributions were going to be very important to getting the whole thing done. And all the great coaches, I think, are known for doing that, for making sure that everybody realizes their contribution. But, I mean, obviously, you kind of were firsthand in that, because you were not where you wanted to be, but clearly you were what they would call an unsung hero. As you said, a couple of important touchdowns that, who knows, had you decided to transfer, no matter how good the talent on that team was, who knows, does that touchdown get scored against Illinois or against Michigan, and does that season change?
Right.
But is that true about Coach Tress and how he was able to keep you locked on and motivated when maybe you were losing it?
Yeah, I think so. He, you know, kind of knew, you know, at the time, I was in it, and I don't know if I was even listening, but I think looking back, I think, you know, he definitely knew how to keep me engaged and working hard. So when the time came where they did use me, that I was ready for it, and, you know, we were able to be successful in executing what we needed to do in order to, you know, win those games.
And you also did what a lot of the great ones do when you look for opportunity. You create your own opportunity. You did a lot of kick returning and punt returning as well. Nearly 1,600 yards in your Ohio State 4-year career there too. So you found other ways to contribute, which is making your own opportunity when it's maybe not necessarily the one that you had hoped for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wanted to, do what I could. I just wanted to be on the field and make plays, and whatever, wherever that was, I was going to take advantage of it, and I was, going to do what I could. So, kick returning, ended up working out for me and pretty well. So, I think that was a good contribution for sure.
Looking at that 2002 season now, let's zero in on that. First team to go 14 wins with no defeats on the other side of the ledger, and really a lot of people would say just a magical type season. So much talent on that team. Before you're talking about the individual season, who were the most played with? Who were truly the elite of all those guys? Man, there was so many, I know.
Shoot, man. I mean, I think you obviously you have to look at Maurice Hall. He's very, very talented guy, very talented running back, smart player. I think you have to look at Chris Gamble. The things that Chris Gamble did for us during that season, playing offense, defense, special teams, and making plays on all sides was amazing. Then you look at Mike Doss, you look at C. Grant. So many people, Craig Krenzel, who made so many plays, Mike Jenkins, it's kind of crazy how many great players we had on that team that were so young at the time. But I would say, and then we don't even talk about the people who were on the national championship team that end up becoming superstars, like a Santonio Holmes, who's a Super Bowl MVP, and like a Troy Smith, who went to the Heisman. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. The talent that we had, on that team, on the field and just on the sideline. So, I would say all those guys were somebody people that I saw that I knew they had that talent, and, it was impressive.
Yeah, when you look back, a decade or so removed, you look at the list of names, just looking at the depth chart here of that team, and you go, man, half of them went to the NFL, and half of those guys became really good in the NFL. I mean, what a
exactly.
deep team. Talk to me about the journey through that season with that team and those guys. Did you guys just know from the beginning that you had something special here, or at what point did that team realize that?
I think we did. In training camp, I remember, like a senior would talk every training camp. They give a talk about, what they envision, and take a page from this book that Coach Tressel had. And I just felt like every senior that spoke with a confidence, with a bound from the coaches to them to the rest of, and I think every game that we went into, regardless if it was a blowout to a team that we weren't expected to beat at all, like a Miami, we always had the same belief, and it was why not us? And because we had been doubted all year how good we were going to be and all these things, but it was why not us? And let's continue to believe, regardless of what things look like at any point in the game. We believe that we can still win. And I think because of that, we overcame a lot of games that were super close, especially at the end of the season. It was because of those coaches, because of those seniors that started that belief.
Was it those two games, especially the two that you scored the touchdowns in there, the Illinois and Michigan? Were those the two games maybe where the one time during the run where you guys said, man, this might be the end of it here, like where it seemed like you may be on them? Would you say it was that point, or was there any point before that where you guys thought, man, that was, you kind of snatched victory from the jaws of defeat?
Yeah, well, I think we always believed that we would win. Obviously, even the game against Cincinnati was very close, and that was a little earlier in the season as well. But I always felt like we were going to win regardless of how close it seemed. We always felt like we were just better. We were a better team. And, the more it got down to the wire, obviously the more attention we got, and, the more, I felt like fans were cringing just as much as, as we were, but it was, I always felt like